Happy Friday! You are listening to the Studio Radio Show Radio. It is Friday, June 12th, 2020. Believe it well, we're happy to see. If you are tuning in on the Awesome God Radio app, if you have not downloaded the free Awesome God Radio app, please do so. Amazing show. Amazing show. You are tuning in on Facebook or on YouTube. Thank you so much. Hit the like button, leave us a comment, and share it. Today, I'm so excited to be here. I am honored, to continue to be on this platform with Awesome God Radio. Let's just hop into the show. I hope you guys are having a great week or have had a great work week and are making it into the weekend. Listen, y'all, here in Maryland, the counties are opening up, the stores are opening up, the restaurants are opening up. I just pray that everyone is safe and that, you continue to just use your best judgment because we are not out of the woods yet. But I'm excited to be able to have the option to go out. And so just operate with your own wisdom. We have an awesome show today. We have an amazing man of God, Isiah Washington, that's going to be on in the second half of the show. We are just talking about solutions. Listen, I know if you're anything like me, the last couple months have been really difficult for a lot of reasons. There has been so many things that have occurred this year. And the last couple of weeks, it's almost like things have just gone, completely out of control and emotions are really, really high. And so I want to talk heavy today about our emotions. I know if you are anything like me, you are all over the place. One minute you might be feeling anger and outraged at some of the things that are happening in our world, in our country, in our communities, even in your own personal lives. On another end, you might be like me where you're feeling hopeful that, I can see the whole picture, not just the hurt. Things things can change. They can get better. You might be feeling sad and lonely and depressed, if you're by yourself or you're just going through different things. There are so many emotions. And if we are not careful, our emotions can take over and they can lead us down a path that we don't necessarily want to go down, that maybe isn't the path that God had for us. So I want us to really talk about our emotions tonight and how to channel those, because they are important, but our emotions are not always facts. This week, I was just kind of in the throes of just doing a lot of things. And, I have a habit, actually was talking to a good friend earlier today about it, that, I am a giver and I'm a doer and I tend to do a lot of things. So people that know me personally, they know that I have several things going on at one time, working full time. I have a business, I have a part-time job, I have a radio show, I have children in my home. I'm always doing things. And what ends up happening is sometimes I get so engrossed in all that I'm doing and all that I'm pouring out to other people and doing for other people, and I forget about myself. And what ends up happening is I end up getting beat down and run down. And I can always tell when I'm in that place because my energy is low. I'm not sleeping as good, or, I'm tired all the time. And I find myself getting irritable over seemingly little things. For me, whenever I start to feel easily agitated, or I find myself agitated about multiple things in the course of the day, that is a key moment for me to stop and reevaluate some things. And so if I can be transparent, today I found myself just becoming irritated really quickly about things. And I just kind of was trying to check myself in the moment and just like, Whitney, calm down. But I just found myself getting easily agitated. And every little thing was triggering me and making me frustrated. And I realized, you have given more out. You've poured more out than you have allowed to be poured into you. You need a reset. During this time, with COVID-19, with the just the uproar and the unrest in our nation due to racism. Everybody is on edge. And I was having a conversation with another close friend of mine earlier this week, I think it was, or last week, about everybody is on edge, right? We are all at our limit. We've been in the house for months. Our lives and what we knew of our normal has been disrupted. We haven't been able to go to the store. Some of us have actually had this virus or have known someone that has had the virus. There are many people that have lost multiple family members and friends and loved ones to this virus and other ailments. Not to mention your own personal storms that you might be going through. It's a lot. It is a lot. On top of trying to teach your children at home, on top of trying to keep everybody healthy and get, your basic needs. We took for granted being able to go to the store and get everything we want every time. Now you gotta, come up with a whole plan just to get your basic essential needs. There's so many things. And then on top of that, we have to watch yet another killing, another murder. We have to deal with, the outrage and, the response to what is happening. You have to deal with the people on social media that are, commenting. And maybe there are things that people you're connected with, you thought they thought one way and you found out they thought a different way. It's a lot. It's a lot. And if we are not careful, it will wear you out. If we are not careful, our emotions will take over and it will shift us ever so swiftly, ever so quickly off track. God has given all of us a plan. He has given all of us an assignment. And our assignment is not contingent on our circumstances. In fact, the circumstances help us pivot to get in alignment with God's plan. And so if we are not careful, we can easily go off that deep end. What is in you is what comes out of you when the pressure hits. So we can talk a good game everywhere else. But what is truly in our hearts is what is going to come out when we are hit unexpectedly. So if you think about this year from top to bottom, January to June, there has been so many unexpected things. And so now what we are seeing is we're getting in tune with who we really are. Never mind who we thought we were, who we could become when we had certain things in place. We are finding out who we are right now. And that is liberating in one set. And in one set, it can be really difficult. But we have got to make sure that our emotions don't take over. We have to use some self-care. Listen, I am a doer. I'm always doing something. I don't even know how to fully relax. But, last Saturday, I remember I just kind of got in my bed and my dad had the kids for a little bit and I laid in the bed and I was watching Netflix. And of course, there was laundry that I needed to be doing. There's always something I can be doing for my full-time job or my part-time job. There's always something I could be doing for my business. But I took a little bit of time and I laid down for a couple hours and I just kind of watched TV. I didn't cook anything. I made some snacks. That was it. And I watched TV and I took some time to just decompress. We are conditioned to press. But there is a maturity and a wisdom as it relates to pressing. There is a time to press, and then there is a time to rest and reset. And so I realized earlier today I was doing so many things, and I could see myself getting agitated and feel myself getting agitated about little things. And I said, oh, you know what? You need a reset. You need to put down, social media for a little bit. You need to turn off the news. You need to close all the laptops and the iPads and all of those things. Get out of your emails. Get out of your to-do list. You need to reset. Because if not, your emotions are going to take over. And your emotions are not facts. That is a big thing. Just because you feel it doesn't mean that it's real. I may feel right now that, I'm exhausted and I'm never going to get any rest. But that's not true because I'm going to go to sleep tonight. You may feel lonely, but that doesn't mean that you are actually alone. You may feel like a failure, but that doesn't actually mean that you are one. Your feelings are not facts, but when you are in them and you don't have any, lifelines, you don't have any self-care regimen, then guess what? It's hard to see your way out of it. And so you've got to check your emotions. You have to take a moment to reset. God, what are you saying to me in this season? God, what am I supposed to do? For me, I, was looking at the news and I'm like, God, you've given me, a voice to share. You have given me different gifts and talents. God gives everybody something. And so my thing is, God, show me what you need me to do. Because how many times are we looking to the left and we're looking to the right at the other people and we're judging them on what they are doing or are not doing? And God is looking at us like, well, what are you doing? Or we're judging them, or maybe we're jealous of them because they do this way and we do something different. Well, guess what? The word of God tells us that we are all the body. And that the eye can't say to the hand, I don't need you. We are all needed, but we're also all needed in our best state. We can't get that way if we are not resetting, if we are not checking our emotions. Listen, our emotions drive us to do things. So, typically, when our back is up against the wall, we're feeling that pressure. You might have some people that have heard this term, fight or flight. So that means either I'm going to fight it out, whether it's physical or emotional or lashing out verbally, whatever, or flight. I'm going to run away. I am escaping this problem. I am not dealing with it. I am out of here. So a lot of us live by that. The moment things get a little thick, it's fight or flight. And some of us do one or the other. Some of us do both. But you have to know that about yourself and know when you're hitting that spot. See, me, I am more of a fight. So, I am the type of person that I will hold a lot of weight and I will hold it inside and I'll cry privately, but I'll still be holding on. And then one thing happens and I blow up like a volcano, right? Like a volcano. And it's like, okay, that response doesn't actually match the size of that problem, but it's because I've been storing all of this stuff, right? You have people that run away. They just escape, they leave, they're done. And it's because their emotions have taken over. The time that we are in right now is critical. And it is going to require you to be able to move as God leads. It's going to require you to be in check with your emotions. And it's going to require you to be able to function with a clear and sound mind, which means you've got to be connected to the Holy Spirit. You've got to be in tune with God. And you can't get that way when your emotions are all over the place. You can't see or hear him or feel him when your emotions are all over the place. So you've got to use some self-care regimen, whatever that looks like for you. So for me, it's therapy. For me, it's sleep. For me, it is just getting a rest. Hey, I need someone to take the kids for a couple hours. I just need to just take a moment, lay on my couch and do nothing. For me, it's journaling and listening to music. Whatever it is for you, you need to find that, because otherwise this season is going to take you out. It is too much to just carry. And I know we're always talking about pressing, and we are just going to press on because God has us. But God also gives us discernment. He also says for us to come to him when we are burdened, and he will give us rest. God never said that we're supposed to be in press mode all the time. There's a time and place to press. There's a time and place to rest. And then there's a time and place to work. And you have to know where you are. And you're going to go in between them because it's not all one way. So in this season, you're going to have to check yourself regularly. Listen, I have had to check myself. Earlier today, I could feel myself getting an attitude. I mean, every little thing was getting on my nerves. And I said, you know what? You need to chill out. Go get a reset. Go hop in the shower, take an extra shower. That's something I do to decompress. Go pray for a second. Go sit down somewhere. Go do something. You need a reset. Because your emotions are getting in the way of your purpose. Your emotions are getting in the way of your assignment. So you have to pivot and you have to reset. It's hard, y'all. I know. I know for me, I am such a detail-oriented person. I'm a task-oriented person. I have my schedules and my calendars, and I believe in order. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I'm realizing is that sometimes I've got to pivot. Sometimes it's not going to look exactly how I thought it was going to look. Sometimes I have to be willing to reset and reevaluate something. And that is what we need to be doing as the body of Christ right now. I know tensions are high. I know emotions are high. I know that we are fed up. We are tired of what is happening in our country, and we are ready to act. I'm all with you there. But we got to make sure we are taking care of ourselves as well. We got to make sure we take that moment to reset. That's where we hear clearly from God. God cannot give direction in confusion. He needs your attention. He needs you to focus. Imagine walking into a classroom and there's 30 kids and they're all talking and running around the classroom and the teacher's trying to give directions. Nobody is going to hear her, right? Because there's too much going on. We've got to quiet things down so that we can hear clearly from God of what we are supposed to do. All of us have a role to play in this season. We all have a role. And many of us, I've been looking on social media. We got all the commentary in the world. We are, this person should have done this. Why are they protesting? We shouldn't be protesting. Why are you not protesting? You should be protesting. We have something to say about everybody except us. Find your lane. Find your lane. And find what God is having you to do. Everybody has a role. The word of God tells us that we are all the body and that every part of the body matters. Okay? So we all have a position we need to take. But if we are constantly in our feelings, we are going to lose sight of the instruction. And the time is essential. It is now. This is not tomorrow. This is not next week. It's right now. But you got to be in tune. And you can't do that with all of the noise. I imagine it's like being in New York City. New York City is naturally a busy place. There are all kinds of sounds in New York City, right? You're going to hear a lot of things, and it can be hard to focus. What you need is that countryside, right? You need something in the Carolinas where it's deep in the country. Everything that they needed to know, as I taught them all the things that people say. And sometimes I feel like I have to have a lot of wisdom. But I have to remember who I'm about. And that I don't have to feel all that with myself. I got to reset. If I can't be on my position, as mother, if I'm always out somewhere because I'm unhappy. Or because I've had some emotional breakdown. I can't be in position to be because I'm not going to be able to be effective in my job. We all have to have safe spaces to release that emotion. I'm not saying stuff it. Don't do that. I'm saying you've got to find a way to get your emotions out in a safe place, in a safe way. You've got to release it, or it's going to have you bound. And time is now. Listen, we can do protests all day. We can go to the polls and vote. We can create legislation. We can do all kinds of things right now, right? There are so many things to do, but we can't do it if we can't think logically, if we can't use our wisdom and discernment. And that is directly connected to us not being in our feelings, but being in the will and the peace of God. So my question for you today is, what do you choose? Do you want to be in your feelings and that's just where you want to be? Or do you want to break out of that? And I'm not saying it's easy and that anybody can just do it just like that. Listen, I've been in therapy for years, consistent therapy for years, learning strategies to be able to combat those feelings. So the reason why I was able to shift my attitude today is not because I just got it. It's because I've been in therapy for years, learning these skills and strategies, and I'm still learning of what to do to shift and pivot so that I don't stay in that place. So that in my moment of frustration, I don't offend someone that's connected to me. So that in my moment of frustration, I don't dishonor God with my thoughts, my words, and my actions. So it's one of those things, it's continuous learning. It's continuous learning. So you have got to get to where you can grasp hold of those emotions and you can let them out in a safe place. In a safe place. This is the time to move. And a lot of us are like, we don't know what to do. It's almost like double dutch. We see the ropes turning. We're just trying to figure out the right moment to jump in. But we can get that clarity when we're connected to God. But we've got to be willing. We cannot sit back and not respond. And we can't do the same things that we've been doing if they ain't working. So we've got to be in tune to God and be willing to pivot according to his will. But that requires our emotions to be in check. But as you are feeling those things, you're feeling that pit in your stomach, you're feeling fired up and fed up and ready for change. Listen, use that. Ask God to show you how to take that feeling and to birth it into purpose. God, how do I take all this, emotion that I'm feeling? How do I take that and birth it into purpose? Listen, I've lived through this because 8 years ago, my heart was broken. I don't even think broken is quite the word. Shattered. I literally thought, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me, and I am never going to recover. I used to literally think that. And yes, I would smile, and yes, I still went to church, and I went to therapy, and I did all those things. But deep down, when nobody was around, I was destroyed. My husband died. I was a widow at 25 years old, trying to raise 2 small children, one with special needs, and I was over it. And God kept showing me, I got something for you, but you got to ride this process out. I have something for you, but you've got to go through. And what he did is he took all that stuff that I was feeling and he birthed my book. He birthed The Pain is Real, but the Promise is Eternal. What to Do When God's Will Hurts. That wasn't something cute. I had to live that. I had to believe that. And then I had to labor it and deliver it. But he took that pain and he made it to purpose. Through that led to other things, which led me here to the She Heals radio show. So God does have a plan for everything that we are going through. But we got to be willing to endure that process. We've got to be willing to pivot as he leads. Not us leading it, but we've got to be able to pivot. We've got to be able to take that step and say, you know what, God? Check me. Yes, I'm looking at that pastor that made that crazy comment. Yes, I'm looking at that celebrity that made that crazy comment. And you know what? I feel like they should be doing more or they should be doing less. But God, search my heart. What is Whitney doing? What am I doing what you said? Am I a part of the solution or am I a part of the problem? We got to shift our focus. Because social media and the media in general, it's going to share the information as they have it. And it's up to us to decipher what is the truth and what is not. So I can get on here, I can tell you a whole bunch of things, right? And I hope that when I'm telling you things about God, that you're going back and reading your word and you're not just trusting me. I'm just a person. You've got to fact check things. You have to make sure things align up with what God has said to you and to his word. And so you've got to be sure that you are in alignment. And you can't do that if you are looking everywhere else. You have to look and say, God, what do you have for me? God, what do you say about this? There are some things that are happening and my heart's been broken by what is happening in this country. And I'm like, God, I feel that fire. Where do you need me to go? I don't want to insert myself someplace. I want to go where you have led me. I want to go where my steps are ordered. So you know what? I don't have time to dissect what everybody else is doing. I can't put my energy on. I don't have time for people to grow. What about this? This cannot be as good as something else. I love God and I told him that no one better than to know, but this is not it. So I gotta focus on this and listen to the heart that you gotta focus on the heart of you. You don't know what you're saying. Everything you come to him in prayer. And you don't gotta come all the come raw. Listen, I can just keep that way. My prayers is all different. They're like, God, I refuse to live in fear because you told us that you don't give us the spirit of fear. But how am I going to keep my children safe? God, what if my son is out walking the dog and has a problem? What am I going to do? God, do you see what's happening? God, what is my role in this? I have to come to him and be raw and be real. That is what he is looking for. Take those emotions and use them for good. Take those emotions and cry out to God and seek him, and you will find him. He's the closest to us, even though sometimes it feels like he is so far away. But you've got to go in and you've got to really think about, God, what are you saying? You know, I'm so excited that we have an amazing guest that is coming on in just a few minutes to further this conversation. But one of the things that makes me excited, he and I were talking earlier today. We were just doing a quick test run of everything. And I've known him a long time. We'll get into that when he comes on. But we ended into perfect timing. Hey, how are you? Good. I literally just said we're going to get into this, and then you came in. So I want to welcome to the Sea Hills Radio, Isiah Washington. Hi, Isiah.
Hello, how are you?
I am wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well. Can y'all hear me well?
I can. It's a little feedback, but we'll work through it. It's okay. It's okay. So I was just sharing. You're good. So I was just sharing that you and I have known each other for quite some time. And, way back to my youth leader days, my youth group days. And earlier today, you and I were talking, and I feel like some of the things we shared were so important to our conversation right now, which is talking about taking that emotion and using it for purpose. But I just want to backtrack because you said something today that really made me think. And so for those that don't know Isiah, and that are maybe new to the She Heals radio show, I've shared a million times before that, I lost my husband 8 years ago, Stephen Hogan's, and he was an incredible man of God. He was a minister. He was all these things, but he was a youth leader. That was how I met him. That he was a youth leader, and I met him when I was interested in serving in youth ministry. And actually, Isiah, your dad is the one that introduced us. So he did. And so one of the things, I'm wrapping this up quickly so we can get to our topic, is we were talking about legacy.
Right.
We were talking about how you were sharing just some things that Steve had done for you, your memories of him, some things that he had implanted in you, and that it shapes that legacy. And I feel like this right now, the season we are currently in with all that is going on in the entire world, this is where legacies are built.
Yeah.
It's the work that happens now. If we put our emotions aside, we get in tune to what God is saying, and we act according to his instruction. This is how it gets built. Legacy is built in adversity. Nobody is walking into legacy. It's built. You have to grow through it. And so I just thought that was so powerful. So I first want you just to share a little bit about yourself, Isiah, what you do, and then we're going to hop in and talk.
Okay, yeah, and let me know if in my little intro I'm getting too long.
You're good.
With it. Okay, cool. So my name is Isiah Washington. Full name, my name is Robert Isiah Washington. So I come from a family that on my dad's side comes from Mobile, Alabama. Then on my mother's side from New York by way of North Carolina. Um, I have an interesting, I would say, family history. My father growing up in Mobile, Alabama for about 8 years, and coming to New York. My mother growing up in New York. They experienced, I would say, experienced different things, and it's amazing that they came down to Maryland. My dad had a job opportunity, came down to Maryland, and that's how I came about. That's how I was born here. You know, I always tell people I'm one job opportunity away from not being from Maryland. You know, so I'm glad that they were able to come down here and they were able to build a life, build a family, find a church home, celebration, which was Long Reach Church of God at that time. And my parents, they came up under the bishop, Bishop Bob Davis, and up under the model of small groups, and that's what allowed them to really get invested in the church and allowed them to grow in their walk, and then also just to see other young couples that were interested in growing in the Lord. This is all in the mid '90s, early mid '90s.
Yeah.
So it was super refreshing for them. They were newly saved. They didn't grow up in a church fan. I mean, my mother went to church, but it was a cultural thing. My dad, his family down south went to church, but not really in New York like that. But when he got saved, he completely changed his way of thinking. My mother the same way, and they had us. We were at Long Reach Church of God for a while. My dad served as the principal of the academy at that time, and it was incredible, man. Like looking back on it, when you talk about legacy, I'm gonna write a book on my dad, on Bob Washington, because I mean he was a principal of an all black school. It was a Christian, also like Afrocentric curriculum.
Yeah.
I I knew so many black inventors and black everything that one day I asked my dad. I said, Dad, did white people ever invent anything? Just because that's all I was taught. That was I knew about myself and I knew about my people,
And
my
that
heritage.
I'm glad you brought that up. We're actually going to
Mhm.
pivot for that in a little bit too, just about
Yeah,
teach. That is super important.
yeah. So then fast forward, and my dad became a pastor of evangelism. I went on mission trips with him. Been in different countries, serving, meeting people, seeing what I've like. We've gone to countries with huge African populations, people of African descent.
Yes.
So Haiti, Dominican Republic, and then Honduras, like Honduras on the Caribbean Ocean side, they have a lot of Africans, a lot of people that look just like me and you, which is really cool.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so we were able to be a blessing and go. And then after that, my dad got called to Baltimore, Monroe Street, West. For those that don't know, West Baltimore, not too far from what happened with Freddie Gray. That's where I was at 12, 13 years old. We that was our home. That was our second home, and all my friends are from there. Um, my adolescent years, I spent in West Baltimore, and then at the same time, I got in a scholarship to go out to Glen Oak Country School out in Ellicott City. So I was living in Laurel, always at church like 5 days a week in Baltimore, and then at school 5 days a week in Ellicott City. So seen a lot of different things every day. Um,
Yes. And actually, I'm glad you said that. If I can just
mhm.
interject real
Yeah,
quick,
yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
because you have so many different communities that you have been a part of.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
I think that in this situation, with just the civil unrest of our country right now,
yeah.
some of us haven't had that. So we're only from one community and we only
Most
have
of us
the
haven't.
one perspective from that community. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that experience. I think that is so important because as we talk about emotion and turning our
Right, 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 right.
purpose, it's important for us to acknowledge the different places that the different communities we're a part of. So how were they different to be, at church in Baltimore, living in Laurel, going to school, in Ellicott City? What was that
It was it was different. So I would say it became normal because that was my norm. And I
like?
would say one of the most humbling things that happened to me, which made me actually, I didn't think much of it until this situation happened. I had a friend who was from Texas, and because of my upbringing and because of my what I was exposed to, I'm comfortable everywhere I go. But I didn't realize how uncomfortable he was with white people because of what he experienced in Texas. And
Mm,
to me, like for us, Malcolm X said, the East Coast, pretty much the East Coast racism is a little different. Like it's a little more embedded when you go, the North. Um, you don't really know what, they'll say one thing and then they say another. But down south, you know exactly what you're dealing with sometimes.
yeah.
So my friend, he really struggled because he had an altercation where somebody um spat at his mother and then called her the N word. Yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, so that's something that I never experienced. So it really made me think, like, wow, like I think that everybody should be, that should think in the way that I guess that I'm thinking, or that everybody's been around and can be around anybody the whole time. We have a lot of different traumas, a lot of different things that we dealt with that make it a little difficult. So then, how was it? So then, being able to think about those three different experiences all happen simultaneously, also all happening like while I'm becoming a teenager. So it's my body, my mind is changing, and my environments are I'm changing. Three different times, pretty much, sometimes daily. Um, I would say going to school in Ellicott City was very fluent. I had great teachers. I would definitely say teachers that really invested in me. But then I also would say I had classmates that I'm still close with to this day. But then I had some classmates that were a little disconnected. Classmates that because of classmates who saw the world in a lot smaller than I would say they should have seen it. I think that a lot of times when you are only surrounded by a certain thing, you think that's what it is. If
Right.
all I see is a certain group of people, and all I see is people acting a certain way, then that's how I'm going to think everybody is. Being in Baltimore, I would say it was. I mean, I never felt well. I would say being in the different communities, I would say that I belonged to them, but then I was always kind of an outsider. So being in Baltimore, I had close friends, to this day, that were really close. We chop it up, we talk, we pray for one another. We link up, and I think that it was just different down there because it was more life and death. Like there, we had people that they would come for our youth group. That was the only time that they would eat. So they would try to grab as many bags as possible. They get in trouble for taking more bags. You pull them to the side and say, "Well, I didn't eat today," or "I'm getting this from my siblings that are at home and they didn't eat today." And so dealing with that, and then I would say living in Laurel, in Arundel County, like our part of Laurel, police were just really not good to us. And I grew up, we would play basketball, me and my friends in the neighborhood, and we would run like when the cops would come, just because.
Mm.
I mean, I would see my buddies cuffed on the curb just because they were being too loud, apparently, or just stuff that shouldn't have happened. So it was a very interesting experience being in all three of those different environments
Yeah.
every week.
I can imagine. And I think that that speaks to kind of what we are dealing with right now. And so
Yeah,
there are
yeah,
some people that, with what's happened with George Floyd, they know
right.
they are connected to this. They have
Oh
lived
yeah,
this, they've seen
oh
it,
yeah,
you know, they know it. And then you have people that are they don't know it, as in they haven't
right.
lived it, but they're still outraged. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Still
yeah.
outraged, and they still are
Empathy.
out. And then there is a group of people that
It's
they don't
disconnected.
it's nothing to them. They don't understand it. And so that's where civil unrest comes, right? That's where
Right.
we're in this place of everybody is emotions are high all the way around. Everybody
Yeah, and it's
is feeling everything.
yeah, it's interesting. It really is like you said, how we were talking earlier. Like everybody is feeling so deeply right now,
Yeah.
but I think that because of so I think I gave this analogy. Me and my brother were talking earlier. If and say in an abusive relationship, if someone has good times, they have good memories, but then they deal with the abuse, but they stay. That always lingers in their mind. No matter how much good happens, no matter how much
Hmm.
um, they say sorry. That still lingers in their mind, and that scar is always there. Now, for someone who didn't experience that, but they still got to experience that person, they'll have a hard time believing that they could have been so evil, that they could have been so
Right.
abusive. And that's what's going on in America. White people have had the privilege of being nationalists. Like they believe in their nation. They believe, and I mean, when immigrants come here, they come and they still have a love for their country back home, but they come here for opportunities. We're the one group of people I can honestly say I don't know many black people that are proud to be American, and that's tough. Like that's really
Yeah.
hard because we live here, we've been here generationally. We're not like we didn't immigrate here. We were imported. Like so even those of African descent that that are from the Caribbean, from African countries, or from wherever else, it's like they immigrated. That was a choice. They decided to come here and then deal with everything that's happening. We never chose this you
Right.
know.
Right.
So I think that with all of the emotions that we're having right now, they're leading us to different places just because it's like I read an article that said there was a man that said about the Rodney King situation. He said, "Oh, it's never been tape recorded before. Things are going to change. It's things won't be like this anymore.
And
We're
how
not going to deal with this anymore."
early
Right. So
for
for
30
people
years.
for people to think that because so then the question is how do we balance uh, faith with facts you know
Mm,
and that's hard because I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, but then I also look in the Old Testament and I see how the Israelites, the Hebrews, they suffered, and they continuously suffered, and they looked to God in the midst of their suffering, and they
yeah.
fought back. So I think that for people that pick and choose, cherry pick, as I like to call it, even within our sacred holy text, the Bible, I think we got to look at it in its entirety. I think that, I mean, I'm no theologian, but I do love God and I love the Word. But I think that we have to look at the Bible in its entirety and that Jesus was a revolutionary. Um, Shoot, even Peter, I always joke around and say you always need a Peter on the team, somebody to cut an ear off, in case
Yeah.
things get real. Like
Yeah.
the Old Testament, yeah, Samson, like all these people that Joshua that went hard, like they really fought for their people. Now in today's day and time, I don't think I mean bloodshed is not a pretty thing. Death is not pretty. Like there's even a scripture that said that there are certain group of people, like some of the warriors couldn't get into the promised land because they had too much blood on their hands. So I think that understanding that life is sacred and that the best thing to do in this time is to channel the fight in a way that works. Um,
Absolutely. Channel the
yeah,
fight. That's the big thing is
yeah,
I think that, just if we can just shift to talking specifically about the body of Christ and their
for
response,
sure.
we
Hey,
we have people that are willing to have those courageous conversations and say what needs to be said. And we have some people that are not, and they have taken a passive look. And it's frustrating as a body because we work better
yeah,
when we're all together. And if we are,
yeah,
as you said, reading the word of God, we
right,
would clearly see that number one, this is not something new.
right. It isn't.
It is not something new. And number
Yeah,
two, that we have a mandate as believers to act.
for
And
sure, for
I
sure.
think that we're missing, I think that some of us are ready to act. We don't really know how, what to do.
Right,
And then there
right.
are some that are not. So I wanted
Yeah.
to ask you, and just thinking about just your experience and just you being
Hmm.
a young man, you know, how what do you think the proper response is? And I know it's a layered question.
Right. Oh, it
We're all
definitely
trying
is.
to figure out, but just what do you think we can be doing that maybe
Right. I would say that's probably the hardest question that um, I've been asked in a long time, or just period. I would just say ever, because I think that the proper because whenever you make any decision, there's always going to be ways that you could have done better.
absolutely.
So I think that the question is, I would say my answer would be we have to find what response best serves us and
Yeah.
what response is as inclusive with the past and still has like some type of hope and optimism for the future and also a realism for today. And I think it's hard because there's a lot of rhetoric. Like there's because of all the emotions that we talked about, you know. So people are saying different things. People are going on different campaigns, and you know, I served as a. It's something I never thought I would do. I served as a special police officer in an urban area, and it was rough. Like it was really rough. But I think that we have people on both sides that believe in life, and I believe that life is sacred. And I think that that's the one thing that unifies all people of all different beliefs, all different backgrounds.
Mhm.
We can all agree that life is sacred. And if you don't agree with that, then it's like you're outside, like you're moving differently, you know.
Right, right.
Now with the body of Christ, so as believers, what's the proper way? I would say that's hard because I mean, think about all the different denominations we have. Like, what's the proper way? You know, it can, you know, it's really up to how the Lord speaks to you. It's like saying like on a Sunday, well, what word should we have all gotten? It's like, well, the Lord spoke to different preachers in different ways. So you got a different word at that church. I got a different word at this church, and I think that they're still moving and growing together in Christ. Now with the world, I mean, now with the country right now, I think it's a similar thing. I think people think that one something that works in one city will work in another city.
Right.
I think that I've seen police chiefs come to Baltimore that they were big and bad in their city, but as soon as it came to Baltimore, they were like, oh my, like I don't, I'm knee deep, like I'm submerged, and I don't really know how to handle this because every culture, every city is different.
Yeah.
So I think that right now we're just in a place where we got to look at what works in other cities, see if we can try to apply it um, here, and then also I would say, um, I would say. Thinking about the society in its entirety and the systems is looking at everything on a macro level. But if we scale things down to the micro, like we were talking about earlier, like is my neighbor hungry? You know, is
Mhm.
like are the kids in my neighborhood like do they have tutoring? Do they are they passing their classes? You know,
Yeah.
things like that.
Community.
I think things like that, the minor, like I'm gonna say minor because it ends up being major, but being involved in the community and empowering ourselves is what's essential right now. And when it comes to police reform, I, I say, hey, all of the it seems like not say all, but a lot of the eloquent young people, you know, we stick to entertainment. You know, a lot of the ones that fight back, the people with the warrior spirit, we get into entertainment, we get into sports. You know, if we can come and bring it to like, the political realm, like with getting in with lawyers and all that, and creating businesses, getting making money. But I really think politics, because if we can get in the positions of power, then
Mhm.
I think that we can actually try to make some changes. And I
Ab-
said earlier, the era of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King is over. It's not about you know marching and make even though all of those things are important because protests get the attention of the people. And when the people move, lawmakers have to listen. But now it's about the people that are so moved in their protests to be a part of the lawmaking process, to get into their seats, be a
Absolutely.
councilman, be a delegate, be a congressman, be
Yeah.
a senate, be on the school board. You know, because things won't change unless we have a seat at the table. And even at the seat at the table, we're gonna have to fight because it's tough and change isn't gonna happen easily. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I would definitely say that. Mhm.
I think that's wonderful. And I think what you just said is so important. Just to recap of just, not just doing the protests, but getting involved
Right,
in the community, joining like
exactly.
the school boards. And because honestly, racism exists in every facet.
Everywhere,
Not
everywhere.
just the police. Listen, I'm an educator. I can tell you a whole thing
Yeah,
about school and what
everywhere.
is there. And, I'm sure in every industry, somebody
Yeah.
will tell you.
I mean, school is the number one. To me, school is the number one
Speak up
tactic
just a
to
little
keep
bit.
people. Huh? Say it again.
Speak up just a little bit.
Okay, yeah. School to me is the number one tactic to keep people divided and I would say disenfranchised. Education, like when people don't know and people are less educated. Well, I would say wherever their education system is higher, you see people doing better, and that's just like one plus one is two.
Yeah.
You know.
There's a
Uh,
huge discrepancy in how in education. And, to be honest, what's happening right now with COVID
right.
19 has brought that clear to the forefront. You
Oh
can
man.
really see where the resources are and where the resources are not. And again, our
Right.
knowledge is our power, knowing our history and knowing, understanding certain things. And, for me, one of the things that I'm learning in this season is to be slow to speak because and
Mm,
really listening and learning. So before I take
mm,
this one comment somebody posted
right.
off, take a moment to actually make sure I fully understand what
Right.
information is being shared, before
Yeah.
I move forward. And this is the time for us to act, but we can't act if we are all emotion. We have
I,
to
that's so
channel
true.
that emotion, and we've
So true.
got to be willing to listen and to share. And so you talked about joining, your city councils. You talked about
Yeah.
school board and being active and acclimated in your community. Another part
Yeah.
that I think is super important is having those transparent conversations.
Oh yeah.
Some of us, we avoid confrontation. We avoid, they
Sure.
make us feel uncomfortable, and so we don't want to have them. But we
Yeah.
need to have some conversations, with both sides. And a conversation is back and forth, which means we need to be able and willing to
Right.
listen and able and willing to share. And
Yeah.
I think that things are not going to change until we can really call things out. And everyone is going to have to deal with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so,
And
what do you think about? No, you're fine.
yeah.
What do you think about what? How is that something like that? Can it be facilitated? What can we do now to start those? I feel like the opportunity is here, right?
Right.
The conversations are starting on a smaller scale, but what can we do to really put everything out there?
I think that as Black people, we shouldn't have to advocate for our humanity, and I think that that's just been the story of us in America. I say, and with all respect to the Me Too movement, I say the first Me Too movement in America was well, this is just what I say. It's just that the Declaration of Independence that all men are created equal. Black folks say Me Too. And I think that so asking like what more do we have to do? I think we've done everything that we're supposed to do, like biblically, spiritually. We've forgiven, we've turned the other cheek, we've prayed for our enemy, and I think that if you look at the track record, like we've done all of that.
Yeah,
I think that now it's on the people, it's on everybody else to just get with the times. And I think that really making it so uncomfortable and so uncool to be insensitive that people feel like I can't be this way anymore.
yeah,
Um, yeah, like I had this experience one time. I used to work at Verizon. I was fixing someone's phone. They had Confederate flags all over their phone. But he called me sir and like spoke to me like very politely, genuinely. I helped him with his issue. His son kept running up to me and like trying to play with me. He was little. But in that interaction, in my head, I'm thinking, I can't. Like when I saw that, I was caught off guard. But then
right.
I saw how he interacted with me. He interacted with me with respect. So if society is putting pressure on people, so much so to where they may believe what they believe, but they're forced to show people respect and can't do things like they're doing now. I think that's really what we have to keep advocating for. I can't change your mind. Like I don't want to. I'm not in the mind changing business. I'm not in the. I'm in the when you see me, you show respect, and if not, then we can cross out. We can cross. We can figure out what we're gonna do after that. You
Right.
know, and and I think that we've done everything. I mean, when it comes to having discussions, if people want to learn and people want to figure it out, and they come to us with grace and with with honesty and I would say earnestness, then yeah, sure, share. But do I feel like we have to go? We're not the redemption of white America,
Right.
so
Right.
like we're that's for God, like that's for Jesus. I believe in Jesus so much so to where you can go and repent from your racism from Him, not from me.
Right.
Like I can't. I'm not. I can't say, hey, you are forgiven. Like, go say 10 Hail Marys. Like, that's not me. Like,
Right.
So I would say for people that really want to learn, talk to the people, talk to black people in your community, black people at work. Come with grace. Don't come with preconceived notions and
Right.
ideas.
You're not connected.
And yeah, yeah. But I'll say like this though. I'm not gonna rely on the on white consciousness like in this lifetime because it's I mean if we did that then we'd still be slaves. Like we had to say, hey, this isn't right, you know? We
Yeah.
had to say, hey, separate but equal, but we're not equal. But then I mean, even that's another story. But you know, Dr. King predicted a lot of what's happening. He said, you know, with the integration and I feel I've led my people into a burning building with no way of escape. And as people say, we've gotten less and less racist. Okay, and maybe the hate crimes have gone down, but then now we're dealing with this thing with the police, like they almost feel like the last remnant of all the evil that our grandparents and all them fought against is still holding on for dear life. Now I wouldn't say the police department in and of itself is evil because I personally don't believe that. I believe that I believe that systematically there's some bad roots,
Yeah.
and there's rot. There's a lot of rot at the bottom, and I think that when that happens, it even affects the good fruit, that comes out because it's like,
Absolutely. And you can copy and paste that in any industry.
yeah,
Same
yeah,
with education, same with
it's
our
it's a
medical,
hard job. Like
yeah,
it's
healthcare,
one
all
of
of those. And you can
it's one of the
literally
hardest
do the
jobs.
same thing.
Yeah.
I think it's important as we are wrapping up. Time is moving so quickly.
Oh yeah, we could talk forever.
I know, I know. I think it's
Yeah.
important to share that even in all of that's going on, we are not to
Mhm.
lose hope. This is just the time to get up
Mhm.
and do something. And
Right.
again, if you did, we're just tuning in, try to join, get into your community. Start in your neighborhood. If there's
And vote.
and please, please, we will talk about that in more detail very soon as well. But please
Mhm.
get involved in your community. Join different organizations that
Yeah.
are moving things forward. But get to work.
Right.
Sharing things on social media is wonderful.
Yeah.
Other work that needs to be done as well.
Yeah.
This is the
Yeah.
time not to lose hope. Listen, our people have a long history of oppression, but we also have
Mhm.
a long history of overcoming. So we
Right.
have
For
to
sure.
know who we are and to whom we belong, but there is work that needs to be done. Isiah, I just want to thank you so much for being with me today to talk about just some strategies of things we can do to turn all that emotion into purpose. I know we don't have all the answers.
Oh no, definitely.
Had all the
But
answers, we wouldn't be in this situation.
yeah, but when great minds come together and share, I think that's what's important. Um, yeah, and I think that even doing what you're doing, she heals. Like that's such a powerful name because I believe that um, when he decides that I will heal, that's when growth comes, and that's when I would say life even you understand life more.
Absolutely.
And
You have to go.
yeah,
And so we are in it. We're in the thick of it, but all hope is not lost.
yeah, for sure.
Have an assignment and a duty that God has given us. And you know what? As we go through the next couple weeks and months, God will continue to impart in us what He needs us to do. But we have to be in tune. So if you are listening to the show
Yeah,
tonight, I need you to quiet those thoughts and emotions down, get some self-care so that you can hear God clearly so that you can move according to his will. Again, I want to thank Isiah Washington for being a guest on the show. I want to shout out Quincy for being an awesome producer. To my listeners, thank you so much for just being a part of our weekly discussions. You have no idea how much of a pleasure and an honor it is to even have a platform such as this. I'm so thankful to the Awesome God Radio family. Listen, y'all, we have work to do, but we can and we will continue to prosper. The word of God tells us that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. So we just have to roll up our sleeves and get to work and vote. In closing, she thinks, she feels, she prays, she cries. She reassures that God is in control. She rolls up her sleeves, she does the work, and ultimately she heals. This is She Heals Radio Show with your host, Whitney J. Have a blessed weekend. We will see you back here soon. Take care. God bless.